Hello everyone and welcome back to the quarterfinals of the FIDE World Cup 2019. It's Liren versus Alexander Grischuk. Yesterday we've shown a game where Grischuk had the white pieces and, well, after that queen to f3 move, Ding had a win with bishop to d5, but it was an extremely difficult move to calculate over the board and, well, in the end the game ended in a draw. So this is their second classical game. Now Ding has the white pieces and we do have a photo of the matchup, but this is from yesterday's game, not this one that we're showing, where Grischuk had the white pieces, but let's check it out nevertheless. So this is the photo. There we have it, a nice handshake before the start of the game. Grischuk looking very smooth. Ding not ironing out his shirt. I like it. You know, time spent ironing is less time that you could spend analyzing your chess games. So definitely the correct approach. So without further ado, let's check it out. Ding with the white pieces opens with c4. The English opening is on the board with e5 by Grischuk, g3, and knight to f6 with bishop to g2, bishop to c5 now, and d3. With d5 already attacking in the center, c captures, knight captures, and now there are a couple of games where knight to f3 and queen to a4 check was played, but knight to c3 by Ding is a new move. So incredible as it is, but already as of move 6, we have a completely new game. Grischuk avoids the trade with knight back to b6 and knight to f3. Ding is now ready to castle with knight to c6 and both players castle with castles by Ding, castles by Grischuk, and a3, preparing to push b4. Grischuk of course prevents this with a5. And now knight to a4. Ding offers a trade of knights. If you don't want to trade, you will either lose your dark square bishop or you will have your pawn structure messed up here if the bishop, for example, retreats. So we have knight captures on a4, we have queen captures on a4, and now knight to d4. Again, offering yet another trade. Knight captures on d4, bishop captures on d4, and here Ding has to figure out how to develop his pieces. He still has to get the bishop into the game, but how do you get it into the game without losing your b2 pawn? Well, Ding finds a very nice way. He plays bishop to d2. As it turns out, it's not all that great to capture on b2. If you capture on b2, you get rook to b1. And now after the bishop moves, now you can just capture on b7. So black didn't really achieve all that much. So here Grischuk plays c6, prevents this bishop from capturing on b7, for example, in that line. Also prepares to further expand on the queen side with b5. But Ding again with e3. Now it's even worse to capture on b2. For example, if you capture now rook a2 and the bishop is trapped, you have no retreat squares. So after e3, Grischuk goes back with the bishop with bishop to b6 and now bishop to c3. Finally, Ding's bishop is on a very nice diagonal. Well, both of the bishops are. With rook to e8 by Grischuk, developing the rook, and rook f to d1. Ding does the same. With bishop to d7, preparing to push the c5 pawn with some discovery on the queen, and rook a to c1. Now all of Ding's forces are mobilized with h6 and h3. And now comes rook to b8. Now you want to move the bishop, push b5, and, well, continue the game. Depending on what white plays, but you do want to expand on the queen side. With rook to d2, a nice mini rook lift by Ding, and this allows not only doubling on the d file, but also doubling on the c file if needed. With bishop to c7, now preparing to push the b pawn, and now d4. With c5, with more pressure in the center as the queen is now under attack, so Ding retreats it with queen to c2 and now e captures on d4. With e captures on d4 and now c4. Grischuk prefers to keep the d file closed, and also if Ding doesn't want to push d5, this bishop diagonal is also closed for now. So he doesn't want to allow b5, so he pushes a4 himself. And now bishop to d6. Grischuk makes room for his queen on c7. With rook d to d1, doubling up on the d file now. Sorry, not doubling up on the d file, but rather rook back to d1, preparing rook to e1 to trade rooks along the e file. With b6 by black, now the b7 pawn is no longer a target, and now rook to e1 as planned. With rook captures on e1 with check, rook captures on e1, and now queen to c7. And here h4, not keeping your pawn on h3 to remain a target, with rook to e8, offering a trade of yet another rook, and now bishop to d5. So here, it's both players still with the bishop pair, both players a queen, a rook, and 5 pawns each. So the position on the board is equal. With rook captures with check, bishop captures rook, and now bishop to e6. As the c4 pawn is under attack, you do have to prevent it somehow, so Grischuk finds bishop to e6. This does prevent the loss of the c4 pawn, but then again, you are also getting your pawn structure messed up. So Ding plays it with bishop captures on e6, and now f captures on e6, resulting in 3 pawn islands for Grischuk. With queen to e4, a nice centralizing move with the queen, going after the e6 pawn. So Grischuk defends it with king to f7, and now Grischuk was very low on time here. Somewhere, I think he had less than a minute here, and here Ding really has to decide what to do here. As your opponent is very low on time, Ding is still has half an hour of time on his clock, and he has to decide what to do. Does he want to push d5 immediately? Does he want to play h5, grab more space on the king side? But he plays an even nicer move, and it's an even nicer move, especially since your opponent is very low on time, because if you play a forcing move, then your opponent has a forced reply, and then he will just gain more time. But Ding plays bishop to c3, and now Grischuk just has to find a move. There is no forcing line that he can just play. So he retreats with the bishop to f8, and now comes d5. Preparing to capture here with check. So queen to d6 defending. Now we have d captures on e6 with check, queen captures on e6, and now comes queen to b7 with check. King goes back to g8, and now the b6 pawn is pressured, so Ding decides to pressure it again with bishop to d4. And here again, Grischuk was all the time very low on time, and he has to decide what to do here. It's very hard to defend the b6 pawn. I mean, you can defend it. For example, if you play something like bishop c5, you get queen g7 mate. You don't want something like this to happen. So Grischuk almost lost all of his time. He had 3 seconds on the clock when he played queen to f5, and it comes with the idea that he could maybe do some checks. For example, queen b1 check followed by queen to e4 check if the b6 pawn is captured, and also it comes with the idea that well, if bishop captures, then you can play bishop to c5 with attack on the f2 pawn, and it doesn't work. Grischuk had a nice move here, but it's extremely hard to find, especially with 3 seconds on the clock. There is a way out of this position with king to h7, and now after white captures the pawn, for example, you could play queen captures on b6, but now you get queen d7, and now white queen has too much on her hands. The white queen cannot keep defending the bishop here, and also the a4 pawn, so black would simply win back the pawn. But you know, that's when you have more time on the clock to find such moves. Grischuk played queen to f5, and now his idea is, yes, if bishop captures, then you can go bishop to c5 with an attack on the f2 pawn. And now if the bishops are traded, captures, Ding would be up a pawn, for example, queen b5, you offer a queen trade, but then Grischuk can play queen b4. And here he could make things difficult for Ding, as he would have to look some other way how to proceed in this game, because you cannot trade here. If you trade, black is just faster. You push a5, black pushes c3, and you will end up queening with check, and of course now Grischuk would be completely winning. So after this queen to f5 move, Ding didn't capture with the bishop, and of course he still doesn't want to capture with the queen. He sees queen to d7, so first he just improves the position. King to h7, he says there's no way for Grischuk to improve his position. With the constant threat of mate on g7, you can't move your bishop, and the queen can't really do all that much. The bishop nicely guards the f2 pawn all the time, so everything is nicely protected. Here with queen to c2 by Grischuk, and now going after the a4 pawn, saying, okay, now if you capture, I just capture on a4, but now Ding goes queen to d5 check with king to h7, and now queen to f7, a very nice move. The bishop is under attack, and you cannot move it. If you move it, you get queen captures g7 checkmate, so the only way to avoid losing the bishop is to defend it. So here Grischuk finds queen to d3. He says, okay, if you capture my bishop, I'll capture your bishop, but now Ding still doesn't go after the pawn. You could capture it, but Ding still just keeps everything, as it is. He pushes the bishop back, bishop to c3. He just keeps the tension in the position. Now you still can't move the bishop, otherwise you're getting checkmated, and the only way for Grischuk to continue playing this game is to defend the bishop. So he plays bishop to d6. But now Ding got exactly what he wanted. The queen had to move, and now the c4 pawn is free for grabs. Here, Ding played bishop captures on c4, so now he's up a pawn. Grischuk played queen to g6, and just to mention, queen to d6, defending the bishop was Grischuk's 40th move, so he reached time control here. He gained more time on the clock, but now he's down a pawn. Queen captures on c4. With queen to g6, and here Ding just played bishop to d4. He will now again organize an attack against the b6 pawn, which will not be easily defended. And believe it or not, it was in this position on move 42 that Alexander Grischuk resigned the game. And with this resignation, he's out of the FIDE World Cup, whereas Ding proceeds to the semifinals. So if you're wondering about the quote above the board, why is there no who said it, Ding actually said it. I just blocked it so you can't see it. There you have it. He said this in an interview after the game. He said that he is happy about the result, but he's not. But maybe Grischuk did not play so well because he was in time trouble all the time. So there were ways out, but with so little time on the clock, there was just no way of finding it. So yeah, here with being down a pawn, Grischuk is very convinced that Ding will win this game. And he doesn't see himself having any chances here, so he just resigns, not hoping for Ding to fall for any tricks. But yeah, Ding advances to the semifinals. We'll see what happens next. And yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Tough break for Sasha, but you know there can be only one in a match. So yeah, I would like to thank Pavel Rotnagel for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the World Cup and checking up on your wonderful suggestions. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.